The planet of Nerith lay in ruins. Once a world of towering cities, glimmering towers, and vibrant forests, it was now a patchwork of charred landscapes, broken roads, and crumbling monuments. Smoke hung in the skies like a permanent haze, drifting over rivers darkened with ash. In the quiet of the ruined capital, the alien queen, Zyra, observed her empire with eyes that saw everything yet missed little. She stood atop the highest spire of her palace, her elongated frame wrapped in ceremonial armor that gleamed even in the dim light. She had conquered worlds, bent species to her will, and survived wars that would have destroyed lesser beings. Yet the scars of her own planet's latest battle tugged at a corner of her mind she rarely allowed herself to acknowledge. Zyra's subjects whispered her name with reverence and fear. She was flawless in her control, ruthless when she needed to be, and brilliant in strategy. And yet the humans, tiny, fragile creatures from a distant star system, had arrived and managed to survive what no one else could. To Zyra, they were a curiosity, an anomaly to be noted but ultimately insignificant. That was her first mistake. Captain Elias Kane crouched in the shadow of a collapsed bridge at the edge of the capital. His uniform was tattered, his gear patched and held together by ingenuity and grit rather than the advanced technology most soldiers relied on. His boots scuffed the blackened stones as he surveyed the city, eyes sharp, mind sharper. Unlike Zyra, Elias was not thinking of conquest or glory. He was thinking of survival and opportunity. Around him, a handful of human soldiers mirrored his movements. Each one had been chosen not for size, strength, or rank, but for cunning and courage. They had survived ambushes, dodged patrols, and scavenged what they needed to fight an enemy that believed it was invincible. Elias watched the alien patrols march through the streets below, sleek armor reflecting the smoky sunlight, weapons humming with power. They were fast, disciplined, and utterly confident. To a casual observer, they were unstoppable. But humans had a way of seeing angles others ignored. Elias pointed to a supply convoy moving along a cracked highway. 3 guards at the front, he whispered. 2 at the rear, weapons active. Timing will be tight, but we can hit them here. He traced a path with his finger, showing a route through a collapsed subway entrance, a ruined market, and a fallen statue that could provide cover. The plan was audacious and dangerous, but it worked because no alien could predict human improvisation. The humans moved silently, shadows blending with shadows. They slipped past sentries, disabled automated turrets, and made their way to the convoy. When Elias and his team struck, it was not with brute force. Instead, they used small, precise charges to block the convoy's path, cutting off escape routes. They created confusion, misdirection, and chaos without facing overwhelming fire. Within minutes, the humans had seized supplies, destroyed a portion of the convoy, and disappeared back into the ruins, leaving alien soldiers stunned and disoriented. Above it all, Zyra watched through her orbital sensors. She had assumed that humans, fragile and unpredictable, would scatter or fall at the first real threat. She had expected their defeat to be quick, even satisfying. But instead, she saw their discipline, their coordination, and their cunning. A tiny part of her mind, the part she rarely allowed to feel doubt, twitched. These creatures were not what she thought. Zyra turned her gaze to the remnants of the city below. The humans had struck again and again in small, calculated attacks, leaving scars not only on her resources but on her perception. They were not powerful in the way she measured strength, muscle, firepower, or fleet size, but they were unpredictable, relentless, and clever. They adapted. They observed. They learned. Each time she thought she had them cornered, they found a way to slip through her grasp. She clenched her hands, her claws tapping against the polished surface of her spire. She had faced rebellion before, but nothing like this. These humans were not motivated by loyalty, fear, or desire for power. They were driven by something else, something she had never fully understood. She could not predict it, could not control it, and that unnerved her more than any weapon could. Meanwhile, Elias and his team regrouped in the ruins of a former government building. They set down their supplies and checked each other quickly. No one spoke more than necessary. In silence, they worked efficiently, treating injuries, sharing information, and planning the next strike. Elias pulled out a small, handheld device and began analyzing intercepted alien communications. Each snippet confirmed what he already suspected. Zyra's confidence was cracking. Her forces were organized, yes, but they were beginning to hesitate. Uncertainty was creeping in, a human weapon far more powerful than any gun. "Command structure is shifting," Elias said quietly, eyes scanning the streets below through a shattered window. "She's reorganizing her patrols after every hit. She doesn't know how we do it." Isn't that dangerous? We can't just keep picking them off. Eventually, she'll adapt. She'll send everything after us. Every raid, every hit, it's teaching her that she's not in full control. Ilias had once read about the alien species' obsession with order and perfection. He now understood that their rigidity was their weakness. Zyra, however, did not yet know the extent of human resilience. She had never faced creatures that could endure loss without despair, that could improvise from nothing, that could inspire each other to act beyond what logic dictated. She had conquered worlds because her opponents could not adapt, could not resist, could not fight back with the creativity and courage humans displayed every day. But with these humans, she faced a new reality. Strength was not enough. Control was an illusion. The human group moved to a secondary target, a small fuel depot still intact on the outskirts of the city. Ilias had chosen it because it was lightly defended, but more importantly, it was a symbol. Each small victory reminded humans of what they were fighting for, and each one chipped away at the alien queen's belief that the war was hers to win. Ilias crouched behind a mound of rubble, observing the alien guards. They were uniform in movement, precise in execution, but predictable. He motioned for his team to split into pairs. Each pair had a role: distraction, sabotage, cover, and extraction. The humans moved like a well-oiled machine, communicating in gestures and whispers, coordinating timing to the second. When the first charge went off, it was small, a controlled detonation that cut off the main entrance to the depot. Alien guards rushed to investigate, leaving their post unguarded. The humans slipped inside, moved quickly, and secured fuel containers. It was a simple operation, but it required patience, observation, and courage. From her spire, Zyra watched the explosions flicker across the city. She did not feel anger nor fear. She felt something unfamiliar, respect tinged with unease. These humans were changing the battlefield in ways she had not predicted. They were small, yes, fragile, yes, but they were not weak. Each act of resistance, each moment of bravery, revealed something more dangerous than any weapon she had encountered. As Ilias and his team retreated, carrying their prize, he allowed himself a small smile. They had struck again, and for the first time he sensed that the war was not only about survival. It was about proving that humans, despite everything stacked against them, could shape the outcome. They were not pawns in a larger game. They were players. Back in her palace, Zyra leaned on the edge of her balcony, watching the distant figures disappear into the ruins. Her claws tapped against the stone, a soft, rhythmic sound. For centuries, she had believed that power was absolute, that control was everything, and that the universe could be mastered with intellect, discipline, and strength. And yet, for the first time, she realized that control could slip through her fingers, not through failure of weapons or armies, but through the unpredictable courage of a species she had dismissed. The scars of war were everywhere, on the planet, on her people, and on her own perception. But the humans had reminded her that scars could teach, could inspire, and could shatter certainty. And somewhere deep inside, Zyra wondered if she had underestimated them, if she had misjudged what it meant to face a species that refused to be broken. Night fell over Nerith, and the human soldiers camped among the ruins, quiet but vigilant. Fires crackled, casting flickering shadows across their determined faces. They were battered, tired, and constantly hunted, but alive. They were human, and they were dangerous not because they were powerful, but because they refused to give up. And somewhere above them, watching, the alien queen considered a reality she had never faced before: that humans, small and fragile as they seemed, had already begun to change the rules of war. The city of Nerith was quieter now, but that quiet was deceptive. Smoke still drifted from the ruined districts, but the streets were slowly waking with movement. Alien patrols, more alert and cautious than before, moved in careful patterns, scanning for the humans who had repeatedly struck them. Zyra had commanded tighter security, increased surveillance, and shifted her patrols daily. Yet she still felt that nagging tension she could not fully dismiss. Humans were unpredictable, and unpredictability, she had learned, was dangerous. Captain Ilias Kane moved silently among the rubble of a half-collapsed marketplace. His small team had dispersed into separate positions, scouting for signs of alien movement. Ilias crouched behind a toppled statue, scanning the streets with a sharp eye. Unlike the previous raids, this mission required more than speed and surprise. They needed intelligence. If they could understand the alien patrol patterns, the timing of their reinforcements, and the weaknesses in Zyra's command, they could strike at the heart of the city without losing a single man. Ilias adjusted the scope of his handheld scanner. The device, cobbled together from scavenged alien tech and human ingenuity, pulsed softly in his hands. It detected patterns in the movement of the patrols, intercepted low-level communications, and even predicted likely positions of drones. Elias had learned to trust this mixture of observation and technology. It was not infallible, but it was better than anything the aliens expected humans to use. The first patrol approached a narrow alley, moving slowly and methodically. Elias signaled with a hand, and two of his soldiers flanked the patrol from the rooftops, silently disabling their scanners and weapons with quick, precise strikes. The aliens never saw them coming. Within minutes, the patrol was neutralized, and Elias' team melted back into the shadows. Zyra watched the same patrol through her observation network, her antennae twitching with irritation. She had expected humans to make mistakes, to panic, to fall apart when confronted with a real challenge. Yet they executed their attacks with precision. They moved with intelligence and coordination, striking only when the advantage was absolute. The humans were learning, adapting, and evolving in ways she had not anticipated. In the temporary safety of a ruined building, Elias examined the data he had collected. The patterns were subtle but clear. Alien reinforcements tended to respond in predictable waves, with slight delays between patrols. Certain areas were lightly monitored during shifts, especially in the industrial districts. It was not much, but it was enough. "This is good," Elias whispered to Mara, who leaned over his shoulder. "We've got more than just chance to rely on now. We've got timing, patterns, and weaknesses. This is how we beat them without losing ourselves. They're smart, but they're rigid. They can't change like we can. They don't improvise. That's our edge." She had always believed that intelligence could dominate, that strength and strategy could overcome chaos. And yet humans seemed to thrive on chaos. They did not panic. They did not hesitate. They used every loss, every obstacle, every ruined street to learn and adapt. She focused her sensors on a small human team moving through the ruins. Captain Kane. She knew his face, his tactics, his reputation. He was clever, daring, and unafraid. But it was more than that. He inspired others, both human and alien, in ways she did not fully understand. The humans did not just survive, they taught each other, reinforced each other, and grew stronger because of it. Zyra's advisors approached, speaking in rapid, sharp tones. "Your Majesty, the humans strike again. Patrols have been disabled. Supplies have been taken. Our reinforcements report confusion among the units. Fragile, small, limited. We can still crush them if..." They needed information, maps, data cores, anything that would give them a strategic advantage. The humans had learned that sometimes the smallest victories were the most dangerous for the enemy. A stolen data core, a disrupted communication line, or even a symbolic act could destabilize the Queen's control far more than a frontal assault. The team approached an abandoned factory. Its walls were scorched, and its doors hung from their hinges, but Elias knew the data core was inside. Moving with practiced caution, they avoided detection from the drones overhead and slipped through the doors. Inside, the factory was a labyrinth of machinery, broken conveyors, and shadows. Elias led his team carefully, checking corners and listening for the hum of alien sensors. Finally, they reached the control room. The data core glowed faintly on a pedestal, guarded only by a small automated turret. Elias motioned, and Mara set a small charge to disable the turret without harming the core. It took only moments, but in those moments, the Queen's presence loomed in his mind, not literally, but as a force of inevitability. He had learned to respect her power while knowing she could be outwitted. With the core secured, the humans retreated as silently as they had entered. Outside, the city stretched before them, silent and watching. They had succeeded again, and yet the danger was far from over. Every move they made was a message. Humans were not defeated, and the Queen's certainty was beginning to fracture. Zyra sensed it. Through her sensors, through the reports of her commanders, through the subtle shifts in patrol behavior, she felt the first real challenge to her authority. Humans were small, yes, weak, yes, but their ability to learn, to adapt, to inspire each other was something she had not accounted for. She could anticipate weapons, troops, and patterns, but not courage, not creativity, not ingenuity. She stood on her spire and considered the human captain. Elias Kane, clever, brave, unpredictable. In another life, perhaps she might have seen him as an interesting opponent. In this life, he was a threat that defied simple calculation. And for the first time, she felt something she had not experienced in centuries: doubt. The humans, meanwhile, were not thinking about doubt. They were thinking about survival and victory. Elias examined the stolen data core and began to understand the Queen's command network. There were weaknesses, gaps, delays in communication. Small things, easily overlooked by a species obsessed with perfection, but these small things could be exploited. "This is bigger than just raids," Elias said. "This is how we win. Not by brute force, not by weapons, but by understanding, by patience, by proving we are not just strong, we are clever, adaptable, unstoppable in ways they cannot predict." Smoke from the ruins glimmered in the fading light, and distant patrols moved like shadows across the streets. Humans hid among the wreckage, alive, clever, and growing bolder with every strike. Zyra returned to her chambers, a place of stone and light where she could think without interruption. She considered her empire, her subjects, and the humans who defied everything she had known. She was still the queen, still powerful beyond imagining, but a seed of uncertainty had been planted. For centuries, she had assumed control was absolute. Humans had already proven it was not. The first real fracture had appeared in her certainty, and with it, a dangerous awareness. The war was no longer just about survival, occupation, or strategy. It was about understanding a species that refused to be controlled, refused to be broken, and refused to be underestimated. And Zyra, for all her brilliance, had yet to discover just how far their resolve could take them. In the ruins, Elias and his team rested briefly, but there was no celebration. They knew the battle was far from over. The queen was learning, adapting, and watching. But humans had a gift the aliens could not predict: courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act where others hesitated. Each raid, each strike, each small victory built not just supplies or advantage, but hope. Hope that one day the humans would not just survive, they would shatter the illusions of the alien queen herself. And somewhere high above, Zyra considered the humans, their courage, and their cleverness. She had faced rebellion, insurrection, and war before, but this was different. She could see it, feel it, and now fear it, not the fear of weapons, but the fear of being wrong. For the first time, Zyra realized that humans were not just a nuisance. They were a challenge. And every challenge was an opportunity for discovery, for adaptation, and perhaps for defeat. The scars of the city below were visible, but the scars of the Queen's certainty were invisible and growing. The heart of Nerith's industrial district was a labyrinth of metal and machinery, a place where alien industry had once thrived. Factories with smoke-stained walls stretched for miles, their conveyor belts now silent, broken, or buried under rubble. Alien guards patrolled the area in careful formations, but their movements were rigid, predictable. Zyra had increased security after the recent raids, yet the humans, as always, found ways to exploit even the smallest gaps. Captain Elias Kane crouched behind a rusted storage container, scanning the path ahead. His team moved in shadows, silent as ghosts, each member perfectly synchronized. The goal was not destruction this time. The target was intelligence, schematics of alien defenses, troop movements, and supply routes. With this knowledge, the humans could strike not just at patrols, but at the foundation of Zyra's control. Elias tapped Mara on the shoulder and nodded. She understood immediately. The team split into pairs, each moving along separate paths to avoid detection. Drones hovered overhead, scanning, calculating, analyzing, but humans had learned to think differently. They did not move like machines. They predicted patterns, changed paths at the last second, and adapted to what the sensors could not see: human cunning. Inside a partially destroyed factory, the humans found their first obstacle: an automated security turret, sleek and deadly, scanning the floor in slow, deliberate arcs. Elias studied it for a moment, then smiled. "We can't go through it. We go around or we disable it." Every step was careful, measured, but confident. Zyra observed the factory through her surveillance network. Every movement, every subtle shift in shadows was visible to her, yet she felt a tension unlike any she had experienced before. Humans were clever, yes, but this was more than cleverness. They were fearless in ways that defied expectation. Every action was deliberate, every escape planned. They were adapting faster than she could anticipate. The team reached the central control hub of the factory. Screens flickered with data, wires snaked across the floor, and in the center, a glowing terminal pulsed with information. Elias approached it carefully, checking for traps. Alien systems were precise but predictable. Human intelligence, combined with intuition, allowed them to find weaknesses where none seemed to exist. As Elias accessed the terminal, Mara kept watch at the door. "We've got company," she whispered. Two alien guards had entered a side corridor, their armor clinking softly. Elias nodded. "Let them pass." "Focus on our window." He typed rapidly, downloading schematics and troop data, cross-referencing with prior intelligence. The information they gathered could change the course of the resistance forever. Outside, alien reinforcements were being called to the industrial district. Zyra's voice, cold and precise, echoed through the command network. Find them. Any humans in the district must be neutralized. Do not allow them to leave with knowledge of our defenses. Her advisors scrambled to deploy more troops, but she felt an unfamiliar frustration. The humans were always one step ahead, slipping through cracks she could not anticipate. Elias finished the download and signaled the team. It was time to retreat. They moved as quietly as they had arrived, slipping past the inactive turret, through the shadows of the ruined factory floor and out into the streets. Yet this time, a patrol spotted movement. Laser beams cut through the smoke, striking near Mara's feet. She ducked behind cover, firing back with a small pulse weapon. The humans had no illusions about being invincible. They only knew how to survive through skill, planning, and courage. Elias threw a small smoke grenade. The fog of white clouded the patrol's vision. In seconds, the humans vanished, moving silently through alleys and ruined streets, carrying not only information but the proof of their adaptability. This was not brute strength. This was intelligence, courage, and resourcefulness in action. Zyra's sensors registered the retreat. She had anticipated an ambush, an attack, or a direct confrontation, but not this methodical, precise extraction. It unsettled her more than a failed attack ever could. She had always believed control could be maintained, that all variables could be accounted for, but these humans were proving her wrong. They could improvise under pressure, exploit small openings, and act with moral and strategic clarity simultaneously. In a small hideout later that night, Elias examined the downloaded schematics with his team. Walls, patrol routes, defensive turrets, and supply depots were all mapped. "This is bigger than we imagined," he said. "We can anticipate more than just patrols now. We can predict where they'll be weakest, strike at the right time, and get out before they know what happened. We move fast, think faster. That's all they can't match." She could not deny it. They had outsmarted her, not through weapons or numbers, but through ingenuity, timing, and courage. She had always assumed she could see every variable, predict every outcome, and control every situation. Humans proved that assumption false. Her advisors approached, cautious. "Your Majesty, the humans have infiltrated the industrial district and escaped with critical data. They are learning. Each attack is more daring than the last." She was intelligent, disciplined, and unyielding, but she had limits. She could anticipate patterns, but humans could break them. She could intimidate troops, but humans could inspire them. Her certainty was powerful, but not absolute. The humans planned their next move carefully. They would not attack blindly or provoke the Queen unnecessarily. Instead, they would strike where it mattered most, where the alien defenses were weakest, where intelligence and planning could achieve what weapons alone could not. Elias looked at his team. "This is not about winning a battle. It's about changing the way the war is fought. Every success we have, every plan we execute, shows that humans can compete with anything, even the most powerful queen in the galaxy." The humans, in contrast, valued courage, ingenuity, and determination. Their victories were small but meaningful. Each raid, each infiltration, chipped away at her perception of superiority. She could crush them with brute force if she chose, but that would not teach her anything, and it would not prepare her for what humans could become. For the first time, Zyra faced a realization she had never encountered. Intelligence alone was not enough. Strength alone was not enough. The humans had something more dangerous than weapons or armor. They had willpower. They had creativity. They had courage in the face of overwhelming odds, and they were learning faster than she could calculate. The city slept uneasily that night. Fires smoldered in ruins, alien patrols moved like shadows, and humans rested in hidden places, preparing for the next strike. Elias reviewed the downloaded data once more, tracing patrol patterns, studying weak points, and planning the next operation. Each detail, each calculation brought him closer to the day when humans would no longer merely survive. They would dictate the terms of the fight. Zyra, in her private chambers, stared at the holographic map of her city. She had underestimated these humans, and that underestimation had cost her more than resources. It had cost her certainty. The scars of war were visible on the planet, but the scars of her own assumptions were invisible, deep, and troubling. She could not ignore them any longer. Humans were clever, adaptable, and brave. They were not just surviving, they were teaching her a lesson she had never intended to learn. And for the first time, the alien queen felt a shadow of uncertainty in a galaxy she had always believed she controlled. Elias, meanwhile, looked at his team. They were tired but alive. They were human, and that meant they were resilient beyond measure. The war was far from over, but tonight, they had struck a blow not just against the Queen's empire, but against the idea that humans could be ignored, underestimated, or dismissed. And somewhere above them, watching, the alien queen understood that she was no longer facing mere pests, soldiers, or intruders. She was facing a species that could adapt, learn, and challenge everything she believed about power, strategy, and control. The first true confrontation of wits had passed, but the war was only beginning. The humans had made their move, and the Queen had begun to see them as something more than insignificant. She would not admit it aloud, but inside, Zyra's certainty had begun to crack. And that crack, small as it was, might one day shatter her perception entirely. The city of Nerith was tense, though the smoke and ruin hid the quiet storm building within its streets. Zyra had ordered tighter patrols, more surveillance, and stricter control over the industrial district and surrounding areas. She had underestimated the humans before, but their repeated raids had forced her to rethink strategy. Yet, even with all her intelligence networks and fleets, there were things she could not predict, things that made her pulse quicken with an unfamiliar awareness. Captain Elias Kane crouched atop the remains of a half-collapsed building, scanning the streets below. His team was in position, spread across the ruined district like shadows among shadows. This mission was their most ambitious yet. They were not just aiming to strike supplies or steal data, they were planning to disrupt the core of the alien command network, a risk that could change the balance of the war. "Timing is everything," Elias whispered. "We cannot make a mistake. Every second counts. One wrong move, and the Queen's forces will overrun us." They avoided patrols, used the shadows to their advantage, and coordinated silently through gestures and subtle signals. Each step brought them closer to the core facility, where the alien command network pulsed with information, control, and power. This was the nerve center of Zyra's city, the place where her perception of certainty was strongest, and where she would soon find it challenged. Inside the facility, alien operators monitored the city through screens and sensors. They were alert, more cautious than usual, but their movements were calculated, predictable. They were skilled, yes, but rigid. Elias had learned that rigidity was an advantage when combined with human unpredictability. The team reached the outer perimeter of the command hub. Automated turrets and motion sensors surrounded it, but Elias had studied their rotations, timing, and blind spots. "We move in 3 phases," he whispered. "Distraction first, infiltration second, extraction last. Follow my lead." When the charges went off, the lights flickered, and alarms sounded briefly, drawing a portion of the alien guards away from the main entrance. The humans moved quickly, slipping through corridors with silent agility, guided by strategy rather than force. Zyra, observing through her sensors, felt the shift in control. Her network was disrupted for the first time in months. The humans were inside the heart of her operations. She clenched her claws, frustration and fascination twisting together. How could creatures so small and fragile infiltrate her command center with such precision? She had always assumed that her intelligence, her preparation, and her authority were unassailable. Yet here they were, demonstrating a capability she had not anticipated. Inside the core, Elias and his team reached the central console. Streams of data glowed on holographic screens, mapping patrols, supply lines, and city infrastructure. Elias began downloading critical information, while Mara and the others kept watch. The operation required focus, speed, and careful timing. Any error could alert the entire facility and trap them inside. Suddenly, alarms blared. Sensors had detected movement outside. Elias froze for a moment, calculating the risks. "Stick to the plan," he whispered. "Extraction is next. We move fast, stay low, and adapt if necessary." They were exploiting every weakness, every delay, every flaw. And for the first time, she felt her certainty falter. Elias and his team moved through service corridors, bypassing locked doors, and using maintenance shafts to avoid patrols. They emerged near the main entrance, carrying data drives that could expose not just patterns, but the Queen's plans, schedules, and even her private strategies. The humans were a storm of quiet efficiency, moving in ways the aliens could not anticipate. Zyra's frustration grew, but so did her fascination. She could sense Captain Kane's presence, feel his decisions, and almost see the courage that propelled him forward. He did not panic. He did not hesitate. He adapted with every obstacle. In centuries of conquest, she had faced many opponents, but none like him, none who could turn predictability into their weakness. The humans reached a rooftop overlooking the facility. Below, alien reinforcements converged, but Elias had predicted this. "Cover each other. Use the smoke and shadows. Timing is everything," he said. Mara tossed a smoke device, blanketing the streets in a thick white fog. The aliens struggled to see, their sensors disrupted. The humans moved quickly, slipping across rooftops, leaping gaps, and descending into hidden alleyways. Zyra watched in silence, her mind racing. She had expected submission, fear, even failure. Instead, she observed courage, intellect, and adaptability. She had underestimated humans in ways she could not easily admit. The very idea that they could infiltrate her most secure facility, steal critical information, and escape without casualties was changing her perception of the war, of her empire, and of herself. The humans regrouped in a temporary hideout, checking the data and ensuring all members were accounted for. Elias examined the drives, his eyes scanning the streams of information. "This is more than just intelligence," he said. "This is leverage. We can anticipate reinforcements, predict patrols, and disrupt supply lines. We can force the Queen to react, to change her strategy, and that's where we gain the advantage. We adapt faster than she expects. Every time she tries to crush us, she teaches us something new, and every lesson we learn makes us stronger." They were not the weak, fragile beings she had dismissed. They were something far more dangerous, a species that could survive, adapt, and outthink her at every turn. The Queen's advisors approached, speaking cautiously. "Your Majesty, they have completed the operation and retreated. We have lost data, and they remain unscathed." "They have outperformed expectations," she admitted softly. "Not in strength, not in numbers, but in cunning, courage, and willpower. They are exceptional. Captain Kane is not like the others. He teaches his people, inspires them, and forces us to rethink everything we know about control." Elias traced patrol shifts, supply routes, and communication gaps. Each discovery provided a small victory, but one that carried significant weight. "This is more than strategy," Elias said. "It's not just about surviving raids, it's about shaping the war itself. Every move we make forces her to react, to reconsider, to doubt. And doubt is her weakness. She's smart, she's powerful, but she's learning something dangerous. Humans do not break under pressure. We adapt, we endure, we think." They did not behave predictably. They did not rely on fear or obedience. They relied on courage, adaptability, and collaboration. Every raid, every infiltration, every small victory chipped away at the certainty she had built over centuries. For the first time, Zyra felt a sense she had rarely known: uncertainty. The humans were not just surviving. They were shaping the battlefield, forcing her to react, forcing her to see that her understanding of power was incomplete. And in that realization, there was a threat more powerful than any weapon. In the quiet of the night, Elias and his team rested briefly, reviewing data and planning the next steps. They were human, resilient, and unbroken. Every small success reinforced their determination, proving that intelligence, courage, and adaptability were far more dangerous than strength alone. Zyra, in her chambers, reflected on the humans and Captain Kane. They had done what no other species had achieved: infiltrated her heart, stolen critical intelligence, and escaped unscathed. And they had done it not through brute force, but through skill, strategy, and willpower. She had assumed certainty in every outcome, control over every variable, and supremacy in every encounter. But humans had shown her that certainty was fragile, control was an illusion, and supremacy could be challenged by intellect, courage, and determination. The war was far from over, but the battlefield had already shifted. Humans had taken the first steps not just toward survival, but toward changing the rules of the fight. And somewhere in the spires above, the alien queen understood a truth she had never fully accepted. Human ingenuity, courage, and resilience were forces that could not be ignored. For the first time in centuries, Zyra considered that the humans were not merely opponents. They were teachers, challengers, and catalysts. And when she faced them again, she would no longer see weakness. She would see a species capable of shattering certainty itself. The night settled over Nurith, the ruins silent but alive with possibility. The humans had moved, adapted, and triumphed in ways the Queen could not fully predict. And in that victory, small though it seemed, they had begun to reshape the war, the planet, and the very understanding of what it meant to be human. The first light of Nurith's morning cut through the lingering smoke and ash, casting long shadows across the ruined streets. The city seemed quieter than it had in months, but the tension was palpable. Zyra had ordered her forces into high alert, scanning every street, every alley, every rooftop. Yet even with all her surveillance, there were gaps. Small, fleeting, but enough for humans to exploit. Captain Elias Kane stood at the edge of the industrial district, his team gathered around him. They had planned their most daring mission yet, to strike at the heart of the alien queen's command and demonstrate the full scope of human ingenuity. Supplies, patrols, and reinforcements had all been carefully studied. Every detail mattered. One wrong move could spell disaster. "We've done well so far," Elias said quietly, his eyes scanning the city below. "But this is more than another raid. This is about proving that humans can shape the battlefield, that we are not just survivors. We are capable of changing the course of this war. This is our chance to show her exactly how dangerous humans can be, not through weapons, but through courage, planning, and adaptability." The key to victory lay in cleverness, unity, and fearlessness. Zyra observed from her palace, her sensors tracking subtle movements through the city. The humans were bold, moving with a confidence that defied her expectations. She had faced countless rebellions, countless armies, and countless species, but humans were different. They did not simply react. They anticipated, adapted, and inspired. And every step they took challenged her certainty, the same certainty that had allowed her to conquer so many worlds. Elias and his team reached the central plaza, where the Queen's communications hub was located. Alien guards patrolled, but their patterns were predictable. The humans had studied them, predicted their moves, and found the weak points in both technology and discipline. A small charge disabled the outer sensors, and the team slipped inside through maintenance corridors. Inside the hub, the humans moved quickly, bypassing security locks and monitoring systems. Every action was precise, calculated, and deliberate. They were not here to destroy for the sake of destruction. They were here to send a message. Humans were clever, capable, and unbroken. Zyra, sensing the intrusion, activated her defense protocols. Turrets whirred to life, drones hovered and scanned, and soldiers moved into position. Yet the humans did not panic. Elias had planned for every contingency, adapting to obstacles in real time. Each soldier knew their role, and each action reinforced the others. The humans reached the main control terminal, where Zyra's personal command interface pulsed with light. Elias approached it, his fingers flying across the controls, transferring data and subtly disrupting the Queen's network. The screens flickered, systems glitched, and for the first time, Zyra felt a real sense of vulnerability. She appeared on the holographic display, her image towering and imposing. "Captain Kane," she said, her voice calm but edged with tension. "I expected resistance. I did not expect this. And we inspire those who thought they had no choice." She realized slowly that this species had qualities her empire could not anticipate: ingenuity, courage, and moral strength. Outside, alien reinforcements moved to intercept the humans. Drones scanned the skies, soldiers patrolled rooftops, but every calculated move was countered by human adaptability. Smoke grenades, improvised diversions, and precise timing allowed the humans to evade capture repeatedly. They were not just fighting. They were demonstrating strategy, intellect, and unity, leaving the alien forces increasingly uncertain. Zyra felt a strange pull, a mixture of frustration and fascination. She had always believed that control could dominate chaos, that power could suppress unpredictability. Yet here, before her eyes, humans were challenging that assumption. They were small, fragile, and limited, but their strength was invisible in their minds, in their will, and in their courage. Elias continued his work at the terminal. "We're not just stealing information," he said. "We're reshaping the battlefield. Every move she has to make, every calculation, every redeployment. She's learning about us, but she's also proving our point. She cannot control everything. Humans are unpredictable in ways she cannot fully anticipate." "Do you think she sees us?" She realized that force alone would not secure victory. The humans had shown her that morality, courage, and ingenuity were weapons in their own right. And for the first time, she considered a different approach. She sent a message through the communications network, speaking directly to the humans. "Captain Kane," she said, her tone measured, "you have proven yourself clever and brave. I underestimated you. Perhaps it is time to consider what your species is capable of, beyond what I assumed." Now she had been forced to see their value in a way that no other species had made her confront. The humans retreated from the central plaza, carrying the intelligence they had gathered. Each movement was calculated, each action precise, yet graceful in its efficiency. They left behind a city that would remember their presence not just in fear, but in awe. Humans had demonstrated that victory was possible through courage, intellect, and unity. Zyra watched them leave, her mind racing. She had always ruled through control, strategy, and fear. Yet humans had shown her that even the most carefully designed systems could be challenged by creativity and adaptability. She realized that power alone was not enough, and that victory required understanding, respect, and insight into the opponent's will and courage. Elias and his team regrouped at their hidden base. They checked the data, planned their next moves, and ensured all members were safe. The humans had not only survived, but had demonstrated their ability to operate beyond expectation. Every member of the team understood the significance. They had forced a powerful alien queen to recognize their value, courage, and ingenuity. Mara spoke softly. "Do you think she will change? Really change?" Whether she adapts or not, she now knows that humans cannot be underestimated. For the first time, she acknowledged a simple truth. Humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and brave. They could survive, challenge, and even reshape her perception of power. She could still crush them with overwhelming force, but the lesson had been learned. Humans were not just survivors, they were innovators, leaders, and catalysts. Their courage and ingenuity had forced her to reconsider what it meant to face a species truly capable of shaping the future. The first cracks in her certainty had become a foundation for a new understanding. Zyra realized that respect, not fear, might be the key to managing the humans. They had demonstrated that moral courage, adaptability, and intelligence were as dangerous as any weapon. In the quiet of the night, the city of Nurith rested uneasily. Alien forces moved cautiously, recalculating, adjusting, and reconsidering. Humans rested, but not in fear. They rested in preparation, knowing that every small victory built momentum. They were a reminder that even in a galaxy ruled by power, courage, intelligence, and ingenuity could tip the scales. Elias looked out over the ruins, his mind focused on the future. "This war is far from over," he said. "But today, we've shown that humans are capable of more than she ever imagined. That knowledge is more powerful than any weapon." Humanity has shattered her certainty, not through force, but through ingenuity, courage, and perseverance. That is our greatest weapon. They were not to be ignored, dismissed, or underestimated. She had faced them repeatedly and had been forced to see them as equals in cunning, resilience, and strategy. The war had changed. The humans had survived, adapted, and emerged as a force to be reckoned with. The alien queen had seen it firsthand. And in that acknowledgement lay a new possibility, that humans, with all their limitations, could shape the galaxy not through sheer power, but through courage, intellect, and the unbreakable spirit that defined them. For the first time in centuries, Zyra considered that humans were not just a threat. They were a challenge, a teacher, and a species capable of reshaping the future. She had underestimated them. She had doubted them. But now she knew. Humanity had shattered her certainty, and the galaxy would never be the same. The smoke of battle had cleared, but the echoes remained. Humans had proven their strength was not measured in weapons or fleets, but in courage, intelligence, and the will to endure. And in that they had won something greater than a single battle. They had won recognition, respect, and the ability to influence the course of history. The first light of dawn illuminated the ruins, and the humans prepared for the next challenge. They had survived, they had learned, and they had changed the way a powerful alien empire viewed them. They were human, and they were unstoppable in ways no one, not even the alien queen, could fully predict.